today, and I would like to talk to you for a little while about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Your friends and mine at Bandai Namco, purveyors of terrible PC ports, which I stand by. We won't start off negatively, but I will say that there are some issues with the PC port of this game that is kinda great, sorta, asterisk. It's kinda great, asterisk. Here's the thing about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, alright? It is a game clearly made by fans, and it is a game for fans. Now, I am a 30-year-old man, so I am a fan of Dragon Ball Z. I have that particular piece of my history where I watched that show on Toonami religiously. You know, got little VHS tapes, all that stuff. We won't go too far into my history there, but like I 100% am part of the target demographic for this game. And I've played Dragon Ball games quite frequently as a video game person. I played a lot of Kakarot and a lot of Xenoverse and Xenoverse 2 in recent memory. By recent, I mean like the last 10 years. Oh my god. Those games are pretty good. I like some of the creative liberties that those games took at times. But if we want to talk about creative liberties, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is full of them. So the thing to know about this up front is it is a sequel, even though it doesn't sound like it is a sequel to the Budokai Tenkaichi games. The last one came out in 2007, which is nuts. I was in middle school when that came out, and I played it on my Wii with a Wii remote. I wasn't even using a GameCube controller like some kind of cool guy. I was just like flipping around with my little Wiimote, shaking them, doing little Kamehameha moves. It was neat. What was so remarkable about those games was the fact that each one successively had an even larger roster. So by the time you got to the third one, there were like, I don't know, at least like 150 characters in it, and they were from all over Dragon Ball at that time. Of course, that was pre-Super. Super didn't exist in 2007. To me, Super still feels like fan fiction stuff. Honestly, like Beerus still kind of comes across to me as, oh man, somebody on DeviantArt drew that guy. Now I know a lot of people on DeviantArt have drawn Beerus, but you know what I mean. The game makes a really solid early impression because one of the first things you see is the menu, and the menu goes way harder than it has any need to whatsoever. The menus all have like unique dialogue and characters running around, and it's all 3D modeled and sort of in 3D space, and each section of the menu has a transition, and there's a different transition if you're moving, say, forwards or backwards into the menu. I'll have some footage to kind of support what I'm saying here to sort of visually demonstrate. And that's awesome. Like, it's just a weird little detail that doesn't seem important, but the game is so many weird little details that don't seem important together that they actually have become very important. It's the meat and potatoes of the game is the attention to detail and the amount of content. There's a ridiculous amount of content in this game. I'll say this, like, if you want a game that you can grind out on, this is a game you could definitely grind out on, because there's, I think, 180, 181 maybe characters, 180-ish characters in the game. Each one has a proficiency level. It doesn't really matter. I can't remember if it goes up to level 7 or level 10, but it goes up to at least level 7. And as you use each character, the proficiency goes up. And, you know, there will be a handful of characters where it will be quite easy to get higher proficiency with them because they have story modes, which we'll talk about later. But a lot of characters, most characters actually, do not have story modes. So getting your proficiency up with them will just be a matter of actually playing the game, either online or doing custom battles featuring them, or making your own custom battles, or doing tournaments, like, you know, just playing as the characters. You'll sort of passively be unlocking titles and other little character card customization things that you can show off to people if you go online. I'm probably not gonna go online, maybe ever. If I do, it'll be very little. I haven't before making this because I know that the Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi game community is sort of like very religious, and they've been playing these games hardcore since 2007, some of them. So like if I go on there, I'm gonna get my butt handed to me immediately, and that's not really my idea of a good time, you know? It's like if you wanted to start playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 now, it feels like good luck learning how to play that game online, dude. Like, people have been playing it for 25 years. If you make a single mistake, you're done. I have a feeling that'll happen. You know, I went online with Xenoverse a few times to do player battles, and just every time I would Once I was killed instantly, I think. And I don't know I don't know if it was my fault. I feel like it couldn't have been because I died so fast. It was like, what could I possibly have done wrong? But it doesn't matter. I have a feeling online and this will perhaps shape into that if it's not there already. But, you know, there's so much content between those unlockables and the primary thing, which is unlocking characters and character outfits, I would argue, because some of them are really cool. A lot of them are just like, oh, this is Goku when he's been damaged enough that he doesn't have a shirt on anymore. And like, that's whatever. But then there are also like the completely different costumes. Like, oh, here's Goku in his Yard Rat outfit. His Yard Rat drip. His Yard Drip, if you will. Or here's Master Roshi in his classic costume. Or here's Master Roshi dressed up as Jackie Chun, which I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of the Jackie Chun representation in this game. It's much higher than I'm accustomed to in video games. Most video games have zero Jackie Chun representation, but Sparking Zero, despite the name, actually has quite a bit. One thing that the Tenkaichi games and even the Budokai games that sort of preceded them always did fairly well was they would experiment with things happening in the story that didn't happen in the actual story of Dragon Ball, which is great because if you're playing a Dragon Ball game, pretty good odds that you're familiar with the story of Dragon Ball Z and Dog. I do not care enough to proceed apace through the Saiyan saga and the Frieza saga and the Cell saga and the Buu saga ever again, frankly. I've done it far too many times in far too many games since I was a wee baby boy. But this one at least mixes it up a little bit because it has incorporated these so-called what-if scenarios into the main story mode a little bit more coherently than they have been in the past, which is an awesome thing to kind of change up when you're bringing this series back after a long hiatus. Basically, as you're playing through the story mode, some of the battles will feature hidden objectives. Typically, it's just beat the battle real fast. Most of the time, it's beat the battle real fast is what I've seen, but not always. Sometimes there are even like little scenes where you get like a dialogue choice sort of thing. There's one really early on where, you know, Raditz, Goku's brother, shows up and kidnaps Gohan, and in the show, Goku teams up with Piccolo and they go fight Raditz, which is a big deal because if you watch Dragon Ball, nobody watched Dragon Ball. If you watch Dragon Ball, Piccolo and Goku are, you know, fated rivals or whatever. So it's a big deal. But in this, you can choose to just not go with Piccolo. You can be like, no, I'm going to do it myself. And then like Krillin and Master Roshi follow you and participate. And what's interesting is if you beat Raditz in that scenario, which you're not really supposed to do, you're supposed to survive, I think, a set amount of time. But if you straight up beat him, it unlocks this sort of like new path of narrative where completely different things happen, and it goes on for a while. Now, these are called, I believe these are called the Sparking episodes, and I don't know why they're called that, but the Sparking episodes are the most robust and the coolest of the what-if scenarios. There are some what-if scenarios that are just like, here's a battle where our heroes lose in the anime, but if you win in the game, you get like a little bit of text that explains like, oh, Goku didn't die here. Isn't that awesome? Cool. But the Sparking episodes go way deeper than that. Some of them have original animation, which I kind of want to talk about that for a second. The animation in the game and the presentation of the game is like all over the place. Like some of it's really high quality. Some of it has like the smoothness of the movement makes me think that it must be motion captured to some extent, right? Like whether they motion captured each scene specifically or they motion captured a bunch of like canned animations and then plop those in the appropriate places, I couldn't tell you. But some of the animation is so smooth, it sort of reminds me of that Donkey Kong Country cartoon. Like sometimes when they move and it just feels like inhuman because it's so human, but the characters look weird, if that makes sense. There's some visuals going on screen right now. You'll kind of maybe get an idea of what I'm talking about a little bit better. But then other times, you know, in the same mode, you will get these sort of like photograph postcard montage things. And they use this, I think, effectively to kind of skip past parts of the story that wouldn't be interesting to just read text about. But man, they look rough. And some of them like transition into and out of really low res video, it stands out how bad it looks when compared to the main game, because the actual game, when it's running on your PC or PS5 or whatever, if you're running it on PC like I am, and I've got like the resolution scale kicked up to 150 or something, it looks remarkably smooth, I think. Like remarkably clean. Like all the characters look awesome in this, which is great because we've seen representations of characters in anime games where they just look like hot doo-doo garbage. Like Jump Force is the one that I always go to, where it just all of the clashing art styles, they tried to consolidate them into one art style for Jump Force, and it just looks so bad. There's a little bit of a mishmash thing going on stylistically between the character models and the environments, which I think is not uncommon for Dragon Ball. Like the environments, they skew a little bit more toward realistic, and then the characters don't. So putting them together is a little weird, but it's also the sort of thing where like my brain kind of glosses over it past a point. And honestly, that's sort of something remarkable about this game, is there are many rough edges like that. There are a whole bunch of things that just feel a little off about Sparking Zero, but they're the sorts of things that, like, honestly, at the end of the day, I just don't care. I really don't care. They have done the stuff that I wanted them to do, and they did stuff that I wanted and didn't even know I wanted. I'll come back to that in a minute, put a pin in that. All of the rough edges of the game are such that the core of the game is satisfying enough that I just sort of don't care that sometimes the cutscenes are ugly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about the ugly cutscenes. I want to see a really well animated Kamehameha. And oh my god, dude, there are so many really well animated Kamehamehas in this game. Every character has an ultimate attack that is like their ultimate attack. And just about all of the ones that I've seen, which is not even close to all of them, I don't think, but most of the ones I've seen are phenomenal. Like, they will do the thing that like Fighters did a little bit, where they will sometimes try to mimic specific scenes from the show or the manga, and it comes across really, really well. And they do, like, just color is used it's so vibrant and so flashy if you don't turn HDR on. By the way, hot tip, HDR in this game is fucking busted, dude. Like, it just does not work right. If you turn it on, your game looks objectively worse than it does with it off. So there's a tip. Another tip, if you're in the settings, might as well do this. It sort of by default puts some controls on what it calls semi-automatic mode. Turn that off, because it is going to screw with you more than it's going to help you. The game's really not that hard to pick up. There's a lot going on, and if you wanted to play it competitively, I'm sure it gets really complicated, and, you know, like, human beings who can keep track of all that stuff. I can't, so I'm never going to be a threat online. If you're that kind of person, awesome. You know, like, more power to you. There's so much stuff you could dig into, I'm sure, here. But turn those semi-automatic controls off, because the control assistance options really are things that hurt more than help. They make the controls feel sluggish and unresponsive in a way that I think does the game no favors on early impressions. And I think some of the pushback that I've seen post-release, I have a feeling is related to that. Because there's a lot of people who I'm seeing this in the era thread, the reset era thread, or Resetera, I don't know which one it is. The logo makes it seem like it's reset era, but it's clearly supposed to be a pun, right? It's like et cetera, so it's Resetera. But I don't know if that's what they were going for, or if that's just a happy coincidence. I don't know how to say the name of that form. Anyway, and even on Twitter, too, like, I've seen a lot of people complaining about a really early fight with Great Ape Vegeta. And I had trouble with it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, like, oh, I breezed through that fight. Like, I do that fight 4 or 5 times. But I think part of the reason people are maybe running into trouble with that fight in particular is not just because it has, like, a different mechanic that the game doesn't really teach you about, which is some giant characters sort of behave differently. On top of that, if you're trying to fight a giant character and you've got those semi-automatic controls on, you're really going to be at a disadvantage, because you're not going to be able to reliably pull off things like, I'm trying to remember what the game calls them, like the thing where they go and they like appear behind the person. I think they're called vanishes in the game or something. Maybe that's what they're called in the show. I don't really remember if they're ever given a name. But those sorts of things become a lot harder to do if you don't have manual control on, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but I swear that's how it works. Like, if you're playing and you have those on, turn them off and play a couple of matches, and then come back and thank me in the comments, because it will be radically different and you will probably very quickly become better at the game. one thing about that, since we're talking about that Grade 8 Vegeta fight, there are weird difficulty spikes in the story mode, but also what's really interesting to me is there are difficulty gulfs, I would say. So like the difficulty's just all over the place, kind of like the presentation. Some fights are really, really hard, and then other fights I've repeatedly run into fights where the enemy just sort of like stands around and waits for me to charge all the way up and get into sparking mode, and that just lets you do like crazy combos. If you get into sparking mode, you can just keep punching and punching and punching, and then, you know, you punch them so much that they fly away, they get like knocked out, so you can't just punch them infinitely, and then you follow that up with your ultimate, and it does just so much damage. Several times the AI in the story mode, without lowering the difficulty, has handed me the opportunity to do that multiple times in a fight, like on a silver platter. So I don't know, man, like it's kind of nuts how wild the swings in difficulty are, because most of the game's really not that hard, but then sometimes there are just these fights like that initial Grade 8 Vegeta fight that like have a gimmick or require you to be like engaging with systems in the game at a level where it wasn't expecting that of you like even 10 minutes ago, if you know what I mean. Speaking of Goku's story, there's another fight like this when you get to this Dragon Ball Super part of the story and you fight Zamasu and Goku Black. You know, fun fight in every game that fight's in. In this one, I've seen people having difficulty. And if you're like me and you don't really play fighting games online and you're not familiar with like FGC lingo and stuff, like it is a good place to start. It's not super hype. It's a pretty lame way to start your engagement with the game itself, but you know, if you hone your skills, you can train, if you will. Now, there's one feature in this game that I was not expecting to love nearly as much as I really do love it, and it's the custom battle creation mode stuff. Holy Lord, dude, it is a little movie, and you can really do it. Like, okay, in college, I played a lot of a video game called WWE 13, and that game had a story creator in it that was awesome. Shout out to my Ghost Problems bros and my Time Rock bros out there, if you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you're a real one. It is not quite at that level because you cannot type dialogue in, which is something you could do in those games. You could just type your own original dialogue. In this one, you have to choose from like pre-written phrases, and some of the phrases have nouns that you can sort of substitute out from a list of other nouns. It sounds limited. It's sort of like the sign system in Elden Ring, but there are so many options for phrases and so many words that they've put in the game for you to be able to use that I have a hard time complaining about it. There's so much flexibility in these things. Ultimately, you are making a fight. Like, ultimately, you are staging a fight between whatever characters, and I think you can do, like, a team of 5 or 6 against another team of 5 or 6, or playable, and there are even some non-playable characters, like Bulma. I think Bulma's the one they use as an example in the also not great tutorial that teaches you how to use this part of the game. You can pull in other characters that you cannot play as and have them in your scenes, but, like, there are multiple camera angles, there are, like, footage filters, and the craziest thing is there are these things called event tables, and this sort of, like, my eyes glazed amazing the event tables are. The event table is like this: you have 50 slots on a table, and I can't remember if they give you 3 or 4, so you've got like 150 to 200 slots per fight, and you can basically set it up so that if you do X, then Y happens. So, for example, in the custom story that I'm working on, that maybe you'll see some footage of, it's called Master Roshi Descends Upon Hell, is the story of Master Roshi dying mid-coitus and going to hell and having to fight the Demon King Dabura. I wanted to have, like, one of those sort of turn the tide moments in that fight, so I've set it up so that when you reduce Dabura to 50% of his health, a cutscene triggers where he powers up, right? And it cuts to, and it has dialogue with it, and it cuts to a camera like spinning around him, and he's charging his energy up. All Super theme song starts playing, or one of the Dragon Ball Super theme songs, I think. And it's just so sick, dude. It's so sick. Fighters and Xenoverse and all these other games. A lot of the music from the anime isn't in the game, period. Apparently, this has something to do with licensing issues. Like, the people they're making the game, ostensibly for Toei or whatever, don't separately, and I guess it's an expensive license. So instead of putting it in the game, they sell it to you as DLC, and the DLC is not included in the big dumb $150 do that. It's an extra $30 split across 2 DLC packs to get Saucely. But you know, you get like the Dragon Ball theme song that like dun 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 dun, that one. You get Chala Head Chala, which is sick. I love saying Chala Head Chala. That's in there. You also get that really sick song that plays when Gohan goes Super Saiyan 2 and fights Cell. They're like, I can't speak Japanese, but that's kind of the flow of that song a little bit. And that song's awesome. It's in there, but only if you buy the stupid DLC, which I did. Something that is cool is I don't think you have to have the DLC to hear the songs in custom battles. So like if I put out Master Roshi Descends Upon Hell, my magnum opus that I'm working on, and you play it and you go into sparking mode as Master Roshi, then it should play the Dragon Ball original theme song, that one. It should play that if you go into sparking mode, even if you don't have the DLC. That's at least a concession that I'm not used to. Typically, you know, games require you to have the DLC to even get any of that. It's awesome that they didn't do the thing that I would have expected them to do, which is lock you out of even playing those if you don't have the DLC. I did try to play a custom battle online from the world. Didn't have the DLC required, so I think that if characters are featured that you don't, edition or whatever. I bought the mid-tier one, right? They gave me the early access and the DLC packs. I don't know, maybe it had that Goku with the power pole that you get from the Ultimate Edition. Maybe he's in there and I don't have him, so it wouldn't let me do that. I don't know. It also could have been a bug. Like, you know, game's only been out a few days. Like, stuff like that's going to happen, especially in an online setting. Whatever, you know, when he gets big and buff, certain dialogue triggers that you won't see otherwise. Like, you can do stuff like that. You can do scenes that interrupt the fights, and I think sometimes they're optional, because I played one online that was like push R3 to see a cutscene. So I don't know. I don't really know the difference between that. It's so sick. There's just so much you can do with that story creator. Here's a free idea for somebody, because I don't have the patience to do this, but somebody should recreate Dragon's Ball PP, the classic Oni NG cartoon, in this creator, and like just see how big the word ant isn't in there, but the word aunt is, like your uncle. And this would be good in Master Roshi Descends Upon Hell. So like my brain is fully in the Master Roshi going to hell story that I've been longing to tell for so long, the fan fiction, bro. But like, I guess that this is sort of the thing that amazes me about all of the mode. There's like a challenge mode where you're unlocking rewards just by like playing the game, basically. And like, it really is a situation where the stuff that really rubs me the wrong way about the game kind of comes off as super unimportant, because the core of the game is so fulfilling to me as a person who likes Dragon Ball. I think if you don't like Dragon Ball, then this game is like objectively bad. Is scratching an itch for me that I didn't even know I needed scratching right now. I guess that this is part of getting old and having like nostalgia plays really work on you. I sort of thought I would be a little immune to it, because my whole life I've just witnessed nostalgia pandering, but this one gets me. That puts like the Bruce Faulconer music in from the Toonami days. You know, I can't wait to fight to Rock the Dragon, which I'm sure somebody will figure that out, because they're not going to sell it to me. Complaint that I want to voice about the story creator. I want to put this out there. There's no organization or rhyme or reason to the way that the words that you can pick or the phrases that you can pick in the story creator are listed. It's broken up into 3 categories. It's like, here are the phrases where you don't substitute any of the words. Here are the phrases where you substitute 1 word. And here are the phrases where you substitute 2 words, which, like, that's helpful. And there are filters where you can be like, show me the ones that hold characters, or the ones that are like emotion, anger, but also the tags that they've put on the system aren't universally accurate, I would say. Like, sometimes I saw one, I was like, I feel like this should be an angry line, but it's just not listed there, or something like that. And there's no alphabetical order to it. You can't turn that on, to my knowledge. And that is awful. It's terrible trying to like navigate the bottom, because she's not even a character in the game. She doesn't even have like an NPC model, right? So there's a bunch of characters that you can add to your stories that way, but their names are just all over the place in the list. And there's no alphabetical. Please, 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 please. Add at least that. Add at least an alphabetical option. You know, if I don't get some sort of fancy free real organizational tools in this thing, please at least give me that. so that I can stop pulling my hair out and being like, I know that I saw, was it? And you're just going like, and you feel like you're a crazy person. I hate that. I hate that. It's creating like an involved, I don't really want to use the word complex for Master Roshi Descends Upon Hell, but you know what, I will. A complex story like Master Roshi Descends Upon Hell is, I think, really just adding an alphabetical sort option it wouldn't fix all of my, kind of the big picture on Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. There's a lot of video game here, and it's not going to be for everyone, that's for sure. It's definitely not. I don't even know that it would be for everyone who likes Dragon Ball. But if you're in that specific demographic of people who have like basically any fondness for those Budokai Tenkaichi games, maybe even the original Budokai games, I don't know, then this thing is going to feel like, it's like popping in a PS2 game again. And I mean that in the most heartfelt, I'll play games from that era for fun. And this feels like one of those. It doesn't feel like a chore in the way that some modern games do, and I'm not going to get on a soapbox about that, but there's a lot of content here, but it's not showing an outward disrespect for my time, or I was going to say or investment, but honestly I think like the hiding the anime DLC until launch and whatever, I bought them, I'm part of the problem. So I was like, no, I need the music in the game. I want the actual Dragon Ball music, and I want this kind of royalty-free sounding music. And some of that music that gets replaced by the anime stuff is not great. I'll tell you that. Like, it's the stuff where I can't imagine anyone saying, I prefer this to this track from the anime that was like an actual song. Much a fan service product, but like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, and I'm better than that. I'm not. It worked on me 100%. I'm having a blast with it. I am having a straight up raging blast too with this thing, if you know what I mean. Like, it's a great video game. Seeing some of the what if scenarios, like seeing Goku go Super Saiyan at different times based on what's going on around him. Seeing like Frieza show up on Earth, looking for the Earth Dragon Balls and just like not really going to Namek at all. Like there's stuff like that that's really interesting. And name Mr. Satan. There's a lot of fights a lot of custom battles that are comically powerful, and that being the whole point. Like there's a lot of that, but it really is just a sandbox where a bunch of kids who all have their access to all the Dragon are still so lax, I guess I would say, that like the system, and I can't wait to play around with it some more. I'm probably not going to have my story done before this video comes out, but keep an eye out. Just, you know, every once in a while, maybe go see if you can find Master Roshi Descends Upon Hell. We'll have a good time. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. How do you feel about it? Are you playing it? Do you want to play it? Let me know in the comments. Tell me, who is your favorite, like, deep cut pick who's in this game? Mine's Dr. Wheelo. I can't believe Dr. Wheelo is in this game from The World's Strongest, which I bought in a bargain bin at Walmart in, like, 2004, I think. Like, somewhere around there. Like, that's a weird, specific memory I have, and that character's in this game, and it's sick. Tell me your thoughts. Let me know about your Dragon Ball faves and picks and who you hope show up in DLC. I'm definitely one of the people that hopes that they do some more like OG Dragon Ball stuff in the DLC. Those characters are like woefully, I still want to see them, right? It doesn't feel quite complete without a little bit more representation from OG years of content. Like Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 came out in like, what, 2017, 2016 maybe, and it still gets new content updates. Like for free and paid. It's crazy. Fighters got like 2 seasons of character DLCs, maybe 3, I don't remember. Like these games get content for a while. I'm hoping this one also does, because there's so much potential. And I feel like the workflow for adding new characters is not probably that crazy that you couldn't have, say, a team of people working on that for a while. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Chala head chala, y'all. I'll see you around the bend.
No cap, let's go!
Oh my god. That cringes me.
Yeah.